Dozens of people are dead following a massive market bombing attack in Somalia. A Tanzanian woman works tirelessly to end child marriages in her country. And high tech and all things interactive at the New York Toy Fair. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, residents in Somalia are trying to recover Monday from a massive car bombing attack in Mogadishu. According to city ambulance services, at least 39 people have been killed and dozens of others were wounded on Sunday at a busy marketplace. The devastating blast ripped through a busy market in Kawogode in the Wadajir district. Security officials and witnesses say the victims included civilians, shopkeepers and government soldiers. No one has yet claimed the responsibility for the blast, but officials are blaming the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Somalia's new president, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, is promising a $100,000 reward to anyone with information about the car bombing. He's also pledging to pay the medical treatment for those wounded and support the families of those who lost their lives. Well, a top South Sudan official says that parts of the war-ravaged country is being hit by an extreme scarcity of food. Isaiah Chol Arwai, chairman of South Sudan's National Bureau of Statistics, said Monday the impact of the war, combined with high food prices, economic disruption, and low agricultural production, is expected to make 4.9 million people food insecure between February and April, and that number is expected to rise to 5.5 million by July. Now, fighting in South Sudan is preventing many farmers from harvesting their crops, while hyperinflation, which reached more than 800% last year, has the price of imported food beyond the reach of many citizens. The United Nations says a famine is declared when at least 20% of households in an area face extreme food shortages. Acute malnutrition rates exceed 30%, and 2 or more people per 10,000 are dying each day. U.S. President Donald Trump marks his first month in office on Monday, and it has been an unpredictable roller coaster ride of claims and counterclaims between the president and the international community, the American public, and most of all, the media. Still, Mr. Trump is declaring his presidency an early success in bringing change to Washington. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone reports from Washington.
President Trump offered a fulsome defense of his first month in office at his recent news conference, where he also displayed his now familiar combative side with reporters.
I'm making this presentation directly to the American people, with the media present, which is an honor to have you this morning, because many of our nation's reporters and folks will not tell you the truth.
It was an extraordinary moment for a new president, blasting the media for not giving him enough credit for what he described as the significant progress his administration has already made, despite inheriting what Trump called a mess.
So I know when you're telling the truth or when you're not. I just see many, many untruthful things. And I'll tell you what else I see. I see tone. You know the word tone. The tone is such hatred. I'm really not a bad person, by the way.
Trump remains on the defensive over relations with Russia in the wake of his firing of National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Congressional Democrats are demanding a broad investigation of any contacts between the Trump campaign and Russia. Democratic Representative Elijah Cummings invoked a question with echoes of the Watergate scandal that eventually brought down President Richard Nixon in 1974.
What did the president know, and when did he know it? And so I believe we need to hold a public hearing with Flynn to get to the bottom of this.
I want to find a friendly reporter.
Trump's feisty encounter with the press spurred fresh concerns among critics. Many of Trump's earliest congressional supporters say their constituents are sticking with the president, including Representative Chris Collins of New York.
His supporters know that he's delivering, so I know we're very comfortable here that this president's approval rating is sky high, frankly.
Supporters and critics alike are still trying to figure Trump out, says Republican strategist John Fury.
It's not clear to me whether this is part of a concerted strategy or it's just who he is. It's also not clear if he's going to settle down or if this is the new normal that we all have to acclimate ourselves with. Clearly, he's not a typical politician. Clearly, he's not a typical president. The voters seem to want someone who's not a typical president. They wanted to upset the status quo, and they got what they asked for.
Even though he's now president, Trump often seems content to remain in campaign mode, says media analyst Stephen Roberts.
The difficulty is that there's an enormous difference between being a candidate and being a president. And to try to apply the attitudes and the verbal attacks that are common in a campaign to a president is very, very different.
Just 1 month in, Trump's combative style remains intact. A new president who seems to expect Washington to adjust to him and his leadership style and not the other way around. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said Monday he is grateful for the opportunity to meet with European leaders and reconfirm America's commitment to a strong relationship. His comment came out at the start of talks with European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini in Brussels. Mogherini says the EU and the United States have many things to work on together. Pence later met with the EU Council President Donald Tusk. After the meeting, Pence expressed the strong commitment of the United States to continued partnership and cooperation with the European Union.
Whatever our differences, our two continents share the same heritage, the same values, and above all, the same purpose: to promote peace and prosperity through freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. And to those objectives, we will remain committed.
Vice President Pence is on his first trip to Europe since taking office, intending to reassure allies the United States remains a staunch friend amid concerns about the new administration's America First strategy. While home to countless journalists and defenders of a free press, Washington is abuzz over President Trump's increasingly ferocious attacks on America's news media, as VOA's Michael Bowman reports. U.S. lawmakers are weighing in, with Republican Senator John McCain telling a television network that cracking down on press freedom is how dictators get started.
I am here to tell you about our incredible progress in making America great again.
One day after branding top news outlets the enemy of the American people, President Trump continued savaging the news media at a Florida rally.
They've become a big part of the problem. They are part of the corrupt system. When the media lies to people, I will never, ever let them get away with it. I will do whatever I can that they don't get away with it. They have their own agenda, and their agenda is not your agenda.
This is something that you hear tin pot dictators say when they want to control all of the information.
Lawmakers of both parties routinely complain about news coverage, but defend a free press and recoil from Trump's words.
Of all the things he has said since he became president or since the election, this to me was the most devastating and the most alarming, that he essentially views the First Amendment, because that's what these organizations represent, as an enemy of the people. Not even Nixon went there.
One Republican senator weighed in by tweeting portions of the Bill of Rights guaranteeing free speech and freedom of the press. Others sought to downplay the controversy.
So I see President Trump expressing his opinion rather forceful in his own, his own distinct way, but I see no evidence that anybody is putting forward any kind of legislation to limit the press.
I'm not a great fan of daily tweets. What I am a fan of is what he's been actually doing.
Some closest to Trump are distancing themselves from the president's remarks.
I've had some rather contentious times with the press, but no, the press, as far as I'm concerned, are a constituency that we deal with, and I don't have any issues with the press.
While sporadic anti-Trump protests continue across the country, the president's fiercest backers echo his message.
He's right on point because, unfortunately, most of the news media distorts it and twists it to their benefit. You know, they were hoping that Hillary was going to win, and she didn't.
While rallying supporters, Trump also appears to be bolstering groups eager to challenge his administration in court. U.S. civil rights organizations report a surge in donations since last month's inauguration. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, now to another controversial issue facing President Trump. From border security to a crackdown on illegal immigration, supporters of the president are applauding his actions on topics important to conservative voters. Michael Sullivan reports from Phoenix, Arizona, where conservatives are backing the president despite his critics.
She's a doctor's office in Fort Mojave, Arizona, where her husband Richard has a successful practice as an obstetrician and gynecologist. She's a conservative activist who says that low reimbursements under so-called Obamacare sometimes leave her husband working for nothing.
I was in tears on Inauguration Day for the first time in 8 years, happy tears, because there's been a lot of unhappy tears.
Physician Kelly Ward is another Trump supporter.
I am a former Arizona State Senator, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
Ward launched an unsuccessful challenge to Arizona Senator John McCain in the 2016 Republican primary. She now hopes to replace Arizona's other U.S. Senator, Republican Jeff Flake, in 2018. She says neither senator is a conservative, nor are they really Trump supporters.
I see the effects of illegal immigration on our healthcare system, but it also affects our education system. It affects our infrastructure. It affects every aspect of our society.
Frank Lister of Phoenix supports Kelly Ward and Donald Trump. He is a Catholic and says he got involved in politics over issues such as abortion, which he opposes.
It's been frustrating to a conservative that, we send people to Washington and they don't really do anything. They kind of, again, I don't care if they lose, but they have to put up a fight.
These Trump supporters say that recent airport protests over Trump's executive order banning travel crossed the line between free speech and anarchy. Kelly Ward's husband, physician Michael Ward, is also a Trump supporter, but says conservatives make a mistake if they always agree with the president.
And, I would have liked to have seen the executive order roll out a little bit differently. However, I support what he's trying to do. I believe that what he's doing is constitutional within his powers. The fear is that he's going to overstep his powers, and I think that we have to be the check on that as well.
Kelly Ward says Trump, a businessman, is doing what he needs to do.
He knows how to come in and do a corporate takeover, and really that's what he's had to do after 8 years of Obama.
And she says that President Trump has strong support in Arizona and throughout the West. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Phoenix, Arizona.
U.S. Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly says President Trump will soon release a more streamlined version of an order banning immigrants from 7 Muslim-majority nations from entering the United States. Speaking at the annual Munich Security Conference in Germany on Saturday, Kelly said the new version of the travel ban travel order will take into better consideration those with either work visas or so-called green card permanent residency permits.
It's a good assumption, and as far as the visas go, again, if they're in motion from some distant land to the United States, when they arrive, they will be allowed in. That said, we will have a short phase-in period to make sure that people on the other end don't get on airplanes. But if they're on an airplane and inbound, they'll be allowed to enter the country.
Well, President Trump's original executive order banned entry to the United States for at least 90 days by people from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. It also excluded all refugees seeking resettlement in the U.S. for 120 days, except those from Syria, who were banned indefinitely. Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54. The stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. And also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, the challenges of combating child marriage in Tanzania. Stay with us.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back. Now, many of Africa's youth are making positive changes in their communities. Africa 54's Esther brings us the story of a woman in Tanzania whose efforts are helping to end child marriages in her country.
And getting to see from the perception that I had of America.
Rebecca Zakayo Gyumi is no ordinary Tanzanian. She is the director of Msichana Initiative and a lawyer whose relentless efforts to end child marriages won her a landmark ruling in Tanzania's High Court in 2016. This month, she received the inaugural award for social innovation and change at a luncheon with ambassadors organized by the U.S. Department of State. I asked Rebecca what was behind her decision to fight for girls' rights.
For me, girls' rights was sort of like an important pressing issue, and I've never met actually or heard a country in the world that has been able to attain its fullest potential without investing in its largest population.
Child marriages are prevalent in various parts of the world, and in some countries, outdated cultural practices continue to perpetuate the tradition. In Tanzania, Rebecca's landmark case was a catalyst for public discussion.
Some of the organizations that are working to rescue child brides, they are starting to use the case, as a defense to protect girls from marriage.
In 2013, the U.S. Embassy in Tanzania nominated her for the State Department's flagship exchange program, the International Visitor Leadership Program. The nomination triggered a wider awareness for her cause.
I think content-wise, I got to meet like-minded young people who are really the center of change in their community. We can't wait for our government or our leaders to change our community.
Acting U.S. Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy, Ambassador Bruce Watton, underscored the importance of global ties in connecting the world.
In his recent confirmation hearing, Secretary of State Tillerson said that, quote, "Our leadership demands actions specifically focused on improving the conditions of people the world over." In his hearing, he added, quote, "In the scope of international affairs, America's level of goodwill toward the world is unique."
Rebecca's advice for the youth of Africa?
We have to be the center of discussions of the issues that are happening. We have to be the center of making decisions. We have to be the center of acting, not just talking, but acting to make a difference in our community.
This 2017 IVLP honoree wants African leaders to invest in their youth in order to realize demographic economic dividends that will benefit the entire continent. Esther Gidoi-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Well, now, part of the Washington Mandela Fellowship experience for selected fellows is a 6-week internship in the U.S. We caught up with several Washington Mandela Fellows who were chosen to expand their professional and leadership skills in the U.S. private or public sector. One of them is Melissa Rodriguez, a South African who did her internship with the New York-based Social Innovation Fund, Echoing Green.
Nobody like you has ever been born, and no one like you will ever be born again. You are the only one. The Yali Network are the future presidents. This fellowship experience has now kind of exposed the group to different ways of thinking and also to what's important. And that's really about your community. I'm Belisa Rodriguez from South Africa. I'm a Mandela Washington Fellow from 2016, this year. And I'm currently in New York City doing my professional development experience at Echoing Green. Echoing Green actually comes from a William Blake poem, and people who are waiting to come inside and see, they can read the poem and where it comes from.
Echoing Green is an investor in social entrepreneurs. That means that we support organizations and individuals who are launching businesses or companies or nonprofit organizations that have a social mission at their core.
I'm in Echoing Green to learn more about social entrepreneurship and social impact investment. Social entrepreneurship is a relatively new concept in South Africa.
We saw in the past 2 years that 1/3 of our applicants are coming from the continent of Africa. And so we're seeing this huge boom in ideas, inspiration, and individuals who are ready to really sort of launch organizations for social change coming from the continent.
In arts and culture, in particular, these terms, this terminology, this sector, social entrepreneurship, social impact investment, is still even newer. My role in the consultancy that I would like to build, my mission-based consultancy on creative and cultural industries in Africa, is really also about educating around this type of language. We first, as arts and culture practitioners, have to learn about, what is an entrepreneur? The business lingo. Now we have to learn a new term, social entrepreneurship, and profit plus purpose, mission plus money. All of these kind of dichotomies. So it's really about unlocking innovative means of sustaining your business or your nonprofit.
Echoing Green really operates based on partnership. There is no way that we could find the individuals that we do without partners who are pointing us in the right direction or that are pointing those fellows in our direction.
My key role here is to link the continent of Africa with the opportunities that are here in the USA. I'm now leveraging my own networks and my own expertise and creating outreach partnerships between companies, NGOs, and networks that are on the continent, not only in South Africa, but in different regions, with that of Echoing Green in particular. Very key is the fact that I am part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, because now I have links to 1,000 fellows who are working in high impact areas in different sectors as well, not only arts and culture, but in health and in other social issue areas.
We've been incredibly lucky to have Belisa from South Africa here with us to help build out that connection and to find those partners working in her part of the world and connect them to what we're doing here in New York.
This program is all about connectivity, right? Connecting continents, connecting thinking, connecting people.
And we'll introduce you to more of those Yali fellows. Now, recently we asked you to share your hopes, expectations, and aspirations for 2017. We have received a lot of great responses, and we want to share some of them with you now. So let's get started. From back home in Kenya, Ngwenye Orenge in Nairobi has environmental concerns. He says we need to report on the status of power generation continent-wide and the availability of fresh water to the masses. Nanehi Bill from Addis Ababa makes a tragic plea for help, saying, "We Oromo people need our freedom. We're dying everywhere in Ethiopia." Harrison Gunkarawon Paye Sr. from Monrovia, Liberia says, "My hope and aspiration for 2017 is for my country, Liberia, to have a peaceful election and smooth transition of power." Choldit Kir Ngor in Juba hopes for peace to be achieved through inclusive national dialogue in South Sudan. And finally, Frederick Muganzi from Bara, Nigeria, says that for 2017, he hopes people will understand the needs of African youth and help them move ahead. Well, thank you very much for your responses, and just keep them coming. To participate in our social media segment, visit Facebook. The address is Africa54, and tell me what your hopes are for 2017. Or send me a tweet at VOA Vince Makori. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the hottest trends from the New York Toy Fair. We'll be right back.
Continuano purtroppo a giungere notizie di scontri violenti.
Welcome back to Africa 54. And now here's what's trending. At this year's New York Toy Fair, the new trend is physital. That will be a combination of physical and digital. Other strong trends include games and toys inspired by movies. Hasbro is showing off a new Belle, one of the main characters of Beauty and the Beast. Kids can code a dance move, and then the Belle doll actually does the dance that the child has coded. Toy companies know the stakes are high. The U.S. toy market is worth about $26 billion. Next up, bikers are dusting off the winter cobwebs and getting ready for spring and better riding weather at the London Motorcycle Show. The hottest trend is biking is for heritage and custom machines that evoke a flavor of the past, but with modern technology. Over-the-top customized bikes and wild designs are drawing the crowds. More and more bikers, many without any prior mechanical experience, are now tinkering with their bikes and personalizing their rides. And finally, the first ever vegan restaurant at a Palestinian university is now open in Jerusalem. Vegans do not eat or use animal products. The Sufde cafeteria at Al-Quds University is the brainchild of a group of teenagers keen to educate people about animal rights. The Palestinian Animal League, a local organization for the protection and care of animals, got involved and gathered funding via a crowdsourcing campaign. The cafeteria's owner says the eatery is an opportunity to combine traditional recipes that have been passed down through the generations with healthy vegan ingredients. And that is what is trending today, and that is our show. Thanks a lot for watching. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words. Here is a story about journalists keeping secret the names of people who give them information.
Confidential. The ability to keep sources confidential is central to the practice of journalism, and it's very difficult for journalists to be able to do their job, which is upholding our democracy, ensuring that the government is transparent and accountable if they're not allowed to keep their sources confidential.
Confidential means to keep a secret. Sometimes journalists keep secret the names of their sources to prevent them from getting into trouble. Friends also keep information confidential.
Now, when you hear the word confidential, you will know what this news word means.
Find us and friend us on Facebook, VOA Learning English.